Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the BrandMuscle and Workstride webinar and town hall on Reallocate. Don't terminate your channel incentive budget during these difficult times. We hope as we get started here that everybody is safe and doing the best that they can. There's obviously a lot going on in our worlds, personally and professionally. We're all here home in our workspaces doing the best we can. So be patient with us as we've got kids and animals running around. So we'll do some intros in a second, but first for today, just some quick high-level goals, right? We're doing check the basics here. Just computer sound, everyone's muted for now. If you've got questions, feel free to enter them. Our intent is to answer as many as we can. We had some of you submit questions ahead of time, and we'll monitor questions and get to many of those as we can. And as we finish here over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be sharing some additional resources that between BrandMuscle and Workstride we've been building out over the course of the last 2 months to help businesses and channel partners be more successful and as they can be through this time. So I'd like to welcome everybody and my other co-host today. My name is Jason Tabeling. I'm our Executive Vice President of Product at BrandMuscle. And I'd like to welcome Tom and James. Tom, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure, would love to. Tom Silk here, Chief Executive Officer at Workstride. Just want to address the hat wearing situation. As some folks may think it's slightly unprofessional, but I haven't had a haircut in 10 weeks, so I think this is better for everybody. Excited to be here this morning. Looking forward to the questions and some good dialogue on the stuff that we're all facing in today's times.
I'm James Morse, Senior Director of Solutions Consulting for BrandMuscle. Similar sentiments. I mean, we're hearing a lot about from our clients and prospects we're talking to about how do we deal with this? How do we get everyone engaged through these tough times? So hopefully we can talk through these and answer some questions.
Well, so yeah, we literally just have a Q&A slide to present to you today. So that's really it. And I think we'll get into it right away. So James, we'll start with you. One of the pre-submitted questions was, how can channel marketing get focused by our partners who are inundated with their own company issues while dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic?
It's a good question. It's a tough one for a lot of these channel partners because they're not typically marketers to begin with. They're just entrepreneurs who are trying to run a business, and it becomes harder when they're worried about paying office rent, employee salaries, and even putting food on the table at home. So there's a couple of ways to keep them marketing. The biggest thing that we're seeing is really turnkey solutions, giving them ways to just have somebody else do it on their behalf. They can enroll in these, especially when you have channel fund programs. They've accrued dollars already for the year. It's still sitting there. They have it to spend. Allowing them to do that, and maybe changing that reimbursement rate a little bit. The other way to really incentivize them to continue marketing during this inundation is to help with the operational cost. And this is something we typically, we go against. You should be using these funds all for marketing your brand, but going back to being worried about paying for office rent and employee salaries, how do you help with that? How do you build that loyalty to ensure that they're still there when business starts to rev up again? You still have those channel partners there to sell your brand, but at the same time building that loyalty that they remember you. So do you help cover a little bit of the rent in June if they start putting up window clings and do a 6-month paid media and paid social program? How do you balance out actually doing marketing while helping cover those operational costs and helping them not worry about those types of things? And we're starting to see a lot of transitions away from our trends of just doing marketing to help with them with more of those operational types of costs during this downturn.
Yeah, good, James. I think that leads nicely into one of the next questions here as well. Just how do you get a lagging industry distributed network to put funds to proven sound use? So it said many distributors are focused on retaining customers before the pandemic. Now they feel like it's more important to keep customers coming and expect more. So I think related to all that, the turnkey packages, and we're seeing a lot of businesses provide incentives to get advertising and marketing going for different areas and trying to make these things easier for folks. So a lot of COVID-19 specific media options, you know, $500 a month, which may have been matched previously with co-op funds at maybe 25%, have gone up to 75 or even 100%, to get people active and staying top of mind, and providing those options, you know, again, like a $500 a month Facebook package or search, display, you know, whatever is the right area. And that's accompanied with a lot of quick turn messaging that we've seen. So we've seen a lot of, you know, you've seen it in just broadcast TV or any other advertisements that folks are providing, you know, messaging for this time, how they're being empathetic, how they're trying to support their employees and their customers. And so that messaging is coming quickly with additional of these turnkey packages that we're seeing. Okay, Tom, anything else you guys want to add to either of those before I move on? Tom, there's one for you here next.
Let's tee it up.
Okay, so we got this question is sort of like an outcome-based incentives versus an indicator. You know, what are you seeing from customers right now in terms of changes to their incentives programs?
You know, one of the things that I think, obviously, everything that's happening is terrible, but sometimes these tragedies kind of lead to changes in behaviors, and we're starting to see that with a lot of our customers. Historically or typically, incentives typically follow where money changes hand, where the transaction happens. So you incentivize someone when they buy the product or they sell the product, but there's a, you know, a cash register ding, and then that creates, you know, an incentive payout. And, you know, one of the things that we've always seen in our program specifically is a very small percentage of funds, a very small percentage of effort and focus go to things outside the actual transaction. And what's happened over the last 60 days is that part's kind of exploded, almost has taken over for the transactional based incentives, because there's not that many transactions happening right now. So I'll give you a couple examples of the stuff that we're seeing out there that's pretty cool and pretty unique. So many of our customers are taking on educational or training based incentives right now. So, you know, kind of an overarching theory is that everyone's optimistic there's going to be some sort of a rebound in the second half, whether it's V-shaped, U-shaped, Nike swoosh shaped. You know, I've read all the articles, but that there's going to be some form of a rebound in the second half. So how do you use this time appropriately to prepare for that rebound? And those training and educational programs are the best, but they're a little boring. I mean, let's just, like, no one wants to sit around and necessarily get trained on product. And I know a lot of the brands that are listening right now have these, you know, these large LMS platforms where they typically struggle to get folks to go to. So what we're seeing is our customers are being pretty creative with their utilization of incentive dollars as it relates to training. So I'll give you one example, because I think it sort of summarizes what we're seeing. We have a manufacturing company that just launched a 3-part training series on a new product line that they were getting ready to launch during the summer. So they did one training in April, they're doing one training in May, and one training in June, a 3-part series. And, you know, there's a couple modules per training. They're rewarding their dealers and their dealer sales reps $25 per part, and then $25 if you take all 3. So a $100 allocation, which was typically their Q2 incentive budget, but they kind of transformed into training. But here's what's cool. Math is your friend in incentive programs. So one of the things that they did was they didn't want to just give the full 100. So basically the participants get half of that value as they complete the training. The other half, so let's say everybody does, somebody does all of them, they have the full $100. $50 is reserved for the first time you sell that product once the economy opens back up. So it's like there's a little bit of a cliffhanger, a little bit of a, you know, I think a follow-on incentive there that I think is pretty cool. One other area we're seeing folks focus on are the leading indicators to sales, not the outcomes themselves. So when I say leading indicators, depending upon what vertical you're in, we're seeing folks spiff or incentivize on appointment bookings. We're seeing them spiff and incentivize on getting folks enrolled in the loyalty or incentive program. All those things that you never have time to do when you're so focused on the transaction, we're seeing a lot of customers do right now. Now it gets tricky, because validating that this stuff is legitimate and making sure that, everything's on the up and up. But that's why, from a technology standpoint, you're looking and to leverage those integrations with things like Salesforce, so on and so forth. And I'd say the one more area, so first one, training. Second one is kind of those top of funnel leading indicator spiffs. Third one that we're seeing is what I would kind of call just, humanity. A lot of our customers are enabling their area sales managers, their district sales managers, their own sales folks in the field with a small budget just to recognize dealers, $10 here, $25 there. And, a lot of our customers have gotten us to kind of look at other reward options that I think are more symbolic of the times, like putting in things like DoorDash or stuff like that, where they can get food. So recognizing birthdays, just recognizing, hey, this guy picked up the phone and talked to me for a half an hour and I listened, here's some recognition, some reward money. So that discretionary piece has traditionally been non-existent in the channel. It's all been pay for play, but we're starting to see a little bit of kind of that employee engagement vibe start to transition over into the channel, which I think is cool because relationship building at this point is incredibly important. So those are three areas we're seeing folks kind of change the way that they're using their incentive budgets and preparing for the ultimate rebound in the second half.
So Tom, I have a question around that because the employee engagement piece is really interesting. Obviously it's a reaction to this downturn, but do you ultimately see that staying? Like, after all this, are we going to get so accustomed to it that it becomes just part of our ongoing plans no matter what?
Jason, is James allowed to ask questions, or is that only
we did not discuss this ahead of time? It's very out of turn.
All right, I'll give it a shot anyway. So the answer is I hope so, because when you think about customer loyalty or dealer loyalty, that whole concept of loyalty is all about relationships. What I fear, though, is that the buyer, the channel marketing leaders, the sales leaders understand this and support this, but they're going to have a hard time getting their financial peers in their organizations to bless the expense of something that doesn't have an A to B flat line to a sale. And that's historically been the challenge for most companies as they've established employee engagement or employee recognition programs. But here's the catch. Everyone has an employee recognition or employee engagement program now. So I would say that at some point, it's going to come into the world of channel incentives, even though it doesn't have that direct correlation to a sales outcome. I think it's kind of one of those things that it leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, and then you get the sales outcome. But you can't in any way, shape, or form challenge the importance of relationships, especially in this time.
Thanks. Sorry to go rogue.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Don't do it again. I think the only time I would say too, we've seen a lot of training and webinars in a couple different ways on our side. I think that first point of training, we've seen our customers providing a significant amount of just anything from email tips. Here's how you might want to engage on social media. Here's how you have your remaining co-op funds, to actual webinars where they're giving best practices, and they're seeing greater adoption because there is a little bit more time in the day, less customers you're handling on a day-to-day basis. And I'm hopeful that training, will continue to at least educate and make things easier as we get back into market. And I'm surprised and encouraged by the uptick that we're seeing in that. And I think we might come out with a better, more retooled workforce and channel partnership that we'll have over the long term. It'll benefit us.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, just to kind of go off topic for just a quick second, I have a good friend in the New York City healthcare system, works at one of the largest outfits there. And one of the things they have been trying to do is change the behavior of doctor-patient meetings to more telehealth visits. Prior to this, they were doing maybe 50 a day. Now they're doing 5,000 a day across their entire network. So sometimes these situations that we encounter today are kind of that forced behavior change. And most of it, or at least we hope a lot of it, will stick. So it'll be interesting to see what the world of channel incentives has as we come out of this.
Yeah. All right, James, as punishment for going rogue, we will turn the next question to you. The submitted question was, what is a typical percentage split for marketing funds between branding, growth, and retention?
What's interesting, I don't know that we see it much at the marketing fund level. We've certainly seen a transition when it comes to more of that brand management. How do you segment content to really resonate with the channel partner of what they're trying to do at that time, more that initiative based? So, am I trying to do growth or retention? What does that look like? But we haven't seen that transition with the funds piece. We certainly talked to many of our clients about evolving it that way over the course of the next couple of years. As you start to try to educate the channel partners a little bit more around their thinking, trying to get them to be more strategic ultimately at that local level. But so far, it's really been tactic driven. And you mentioned earlier, we kind of teased out some packages or even the learning opportunities. How do you educate? By incentivizing around those. So if we know that there are certain tactics that have a higher, marketing ROI, how do we incentivize them to do that? We increase the percentages. We really reinforce that positive behavior. And those tactics behind the scenes might have those focuses on branding versus growth versus retention, but the channel partner really doesn't know that extent of it. So again, we haven't really seen that evolution quite yet at the marketing fund level. Just at the content level, that's how the channel partner thinks about it most. But behind the scenes, that can be happening. And each of our clients is different. We traditionally see very much a static percent across the board, whether it's 50 or 75, but a lot of our clients were challenging to change that at that tactic or campaign or initiative level to really drive the appropriate behavior that they're looking for.
Yeah, and James, just to throw a little bit on that one, just from the incentive side, historically, again, I think most incentive programs are run like a consumer loyalty program, kind of thinking more retention, longer terms, lots of the same people involved, spiffing on all the products. We're starting to see a little bit more effort and focus go to pockets or targeted segments. Kind of, we call that the growth part, where you're isolating a variable within your channel and trying to get that one specific group to do something different. So again, another little bit of a sequence of change that's coming out of the pandemic time.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of stay on that point. I think there's a question here. How are programs best navigating the sudden shift from traditional to digital strategies? And I think I'll start with something that we've seen that I think is really interesting. We've had one particular customer, and it hasn't been necessarily true for everybody at this extent, but one particular customer has probably been 60% traditional media spend to 40% digital. And that's gone up from probably 80-20 over 2 years ago. So it's slowly started to increase, and adoption has started to pick up. So what we had at the beginning of April, really, as it started to come into full swing, they decided to keep their full marketing budget going for that month, but shift to 100% digital, no traditional marketing whatsoever. So you suddenly had this, obviously massive market and human impact, and something that people have been hemming and hawing about for literally years and slow to adopt, sort of to Tom's point. And suddenly it's like, we're 100% digital, right? And I think we've seen everybody sort of increase their overall expense there, because you can track things better. You can not be locked into a long-term contract for the billboard or the TV, right? If you want to turn it off or change creative, it's much simpler to do that. But I think that's probably an extreme example, but we've seen a lot of those occurring recently, and even just increasing at a much faster rate.
Yeah, I'll just, from our side of the equation, we're seeing what had already started was a transition away, I think, from the historical travel incentive program every 6 months, every 12 months, go on a trip, to just having some form of travel or physical and gift or incentive within the program, I mean, the digital transformation's been underway for us, and this is just speeding it up even more. I mean, one area that we've seen, to give another specific example, is a customer in the building products industry. They do prepaid cards, Visa cards, and one of the things they had been loath to do is move from the physical Visa to the digital Visa, which is a great option out there, instantaneous. But this fear that the participant base wouldn't understand how to use it, or they wouldn't be able to figure it out, this complete fear of doing it, they're just shifting like, now, oh yeah, let's go digital, let's get them this stuff. So we're seeing that kind of just fasten up throughout our entire portfolio. We don't expect that to change, because I think there's a lot more benefit in digital rewards than there are in more of that traditional sort of merchandise, long shipment times, or even travel, because I think folks are going to be a little weary to get on planes right now and go to crowded places. So I think we're gonna probably see that trend continue even into the rebound in the second half of the year.
Yeah, even for us in our co-op payments out, we're seeing an increase in EFT payments versus traditional checks, which sort of is another example of money quicker, digitize it, not have to worry about getting to the bank, or even if you're working with the post office, right? Less hands on things is a shift that we're seeing. All right, James, we'll take a risk. We'll go back to you. How do we recommend, the question came in, how do you recommend we evolve our channel funds programs to accommodate lack of marketing at the local level during the downturn?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you guys were just talking about from a digital perspective, right? Transition that from more of your traditional types of tactics to more of the digital ones that they can easily hand off and have turnkey packages for. Jason, you're alluding to the clients that we have. I mean, we've seen a lot of our clients, even in retail, which has traditionally been more of I would say more of a traditional physical marketing piece, we're seeing a lot of that transition to the digital piece. How do I start targeting customers through paid search, paid social, but also understanding that they need packages to do these things? How do I target them specifically with the funds that they have accrued and change those percentages? So it's not just email. We don't want to see 90% or 100% with just email, but how do you complement those with other digital tactics while targeting those customers? And it's been huge, and you see a lot of success with it, because to your point, from a metric standpoint, we can give metrics back to these channel partners. They can see how these things are performing very often. Oftentimes we're sending those updates out on a weekly or monthly basis to these channel partners so they can understand, but also giving them more of the concierge service around it so you can get feedback from them and help educate them along the way. That's where so many of our customers are gravitating towards those packages, to just set it and forget it and know that they can focus on other things during this time.
Yeah, I think it's really remarkable how much we've seen that grow, and there is a whole bunch, like I said earlier, flexibility around creative, ability to turn off, ability to target in a more direct way that some of the traditional mediums for a long time, they don't have available to them, and suddenly you can take advantage of these, and those targeting capabilities become even more important as you see people, shifting less cable, more to digital video like a Hulu or stuff like that. The targeting capabilities really just are incredible in any time and provide even more value during this time. The other thing that we haven't mentioned this time, and we covered it a lot on one of our last town halls, but I thought it was important to bring up, is the importance of how you're getting information out, particularly in location data management that we've seen. So, we've had some partners even offer 2 or 3 months free of location data management because it's so important. Or Google changed their rules in Google My Business to allow for, pickup, curbside, temporarily closed locations, where you can mark your business as temporarily closed. Those types of things, and searches for hours of operation have really increased, and I think it's important for those folks to take advantage of that stuff and make sure your information in social, location data management, et cetera, are up to speed. And we've seen our brand and channel partners try and make that easier for folks to take advantage of and remove friction over the last 8 weeks or so.
Well, it's interesting too, because to Tom's points, around education and the move to digital piece, there's so many of these partners at the local level who haven't cared about any of these things before. They didn't care about their hours being updated or the closures or anything, but now they're forced to care because it's the best way to reach their customer base. And I think incentivizing around education is a great way to do that. They know that these things are out there, but they need to understand how to market for these things more. So I love the balance of all these things that are kind of coming together, and the force that this is having on these local channel partners to transition this strategy of theirs.
Yeah. Tom, anything you would add to that beyond what we're talking about so far?
No, I think you guys are, and it's kind of hitting on the same points. One of the things, I hope there's no sales folks on this call that will take offense to this. I mean, I'm a salesperson myself, but one of the big challenges that we hear from our customers when it comes to their networks, their dealers, et cetera, is that their salespeople tend to hang around where their commissions get paid, meaning, they're going to spend the majority of their time around the dealers that do the most business. So those that aren't doing a lot of business with your brand aren't getting that much attention. So in that vein, we're seeing folks put a little bit more effort into getting those folks enrolled in programs, the ones that are typically not touched, because those sales guys aren't making the commissions, sales ladies are not making the commissions. They're trying to figure out different ways to engage. So I think, again, just the forces changing behaviors of everybody in the field.
Yeah. Good. I had one question just additionally come in here related to one of the answers that I'd given earlier when we talked about the customer who had transitioned so quickly from traditional to digital. Was there any other sort of extenuating circumstances that kept them from doing that before? I don't know if there were or not, but there certainly were changes in their business. And probably the most impactful one for that specific customers or shift is they had a high amount of in-store to digital sales. So their ratio of in-store to digital, I guess I don't know off the top of my head, but it was greater than 50-50. So more than 50% of their sales occurred in store, which obviously, has been greatly reduced, even though they are still essential and open through this time. So I think that changed a lot of their KPIs. They were able to look at phone calls through unique 800 numbers, looking at lead forms, scheduled appointments, other more digital KPIs that merged with that shift in spend. We were measuring a lot of in-store visits, even with digital traffic before, and that is slowed down a lot for obvious reasons. Okay, guys, I think if there are any questions in the audience, now would be a good time to submit them. I think we've done a good job answering all the questions. I think Tom, James, while we wait for any other questions, any parting thoughts from you guys? I think we covered a lot over the last 30+ minutes. So,
one of the things that I'm just talking about with our company is embrace the change. So as much as different sometimes feels like a struggle and it's a challenge, focused correctly, you can get a lot of good things out of it. And so we're just taking this opportunity to think differently, look at the world of incentives differently, we'll look at our own technology differently. So we're excited about the changes that are coming, and we're excited to make sure to continue to be open and creatively think about how to support our customers differently.
I think from my end, we typically see during these types of events, marketing budgets get slashed pretty quickly. And our biggest thing is looking at the local level. We shouldn't do that. Try to incentivize them as much as possible. Just because they're not spending right now doesn't mean that they don't want to. It's just that we're not doing it the correct way. So evolve, change those programs, try to figure out better ways to engage the channel partners so that they ultimately fare better once business starts to rev up than those who don't end up marketing at all.
Yeah, great. All right, great stuff, guys. Thank you. Let's go ahead and wrap up here. I think we've got a couple of materials that we'll follow up with this. The recording of this will be available. We'll also have some of the links in there to the materials that Workstride has created, as well as BrandMuscle. We've got even a new post from Mr. James Morse on the panel with us today that we just posted this morning. And so we'll follow up with all that information. And we're really grateful for you guys joining us today. Please stay safe, take care of yourself and each other. And we'll talk to you soon, okay? Thanks, Tom. Thanks, James. Great job, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
See you, everybody.